Be up here, continuing on this series that we've been in for a few weeks. We're going to be in it till Easter. It's a journey through the book of Matthew that we're calling Welcome, Matt. And so I've had a good time with it. Hopefully you have. And we want to just remind you that if you are interested in reading along in Matthew with us, we'd love for you to do that just over the next several weeks. If you want to be reading through Matthew, could give you some good maybe prep for Sunday morning messages or some good context for what we're talking about. But we're excited just to journey through this. And so I was thinking this week about this message, and I was thinking about, just life and whatever. And just thinking, every time in life you start to just kind of learn something or grow in some way, there always comes next a time to put it to the test. Right? There's always a time where it's going to be put to the test. And so pretty soon, I'm in junior high and high school ministry, and we are coming up on the season where I'm going to hear all kinds of groans and grumbles from my juniors in high school because it is testing season. They're going to have ACTs and SATs and whatever other T's that they have. They have all the T's, all the tests, right? You hear all this grumbling. You hear grumbling about homework, but man, when it's test time for any class, any age, we just don't like tests, right? But anytime you learn something or you're growing in some way, there's going to come a time to put it to the test. And so the same thing with, it's playoff season. Somebody asked my dad the other day, what's your favorite season? He said, playoff season. So it's playoff season. So we're watching all the football games, and it's the same thing. You practice, and then there comes a time to put it to the test. You got to play the game. You got to put it to the test. And so this is just how life is, It's like, and it's probably a good thing, because what if we gave 16-year-olds, just hand them a license at 16 and say, off you go, you're good. Yeah, right. Just thinking about that just makes us a little uncomfortable, right? We got to just laugh it off, because that would be terrible. I see the 16-year-olds in my youth ministry. I'm like, there's no way I was that young when I was 16. Like, it's just crazy. So we want to make sure they take the test, and we want to make sure they pass the test, right? This is important. But we don't like to. If you're like me, I don't like tests. And here's why. I hate tests. Maybe you're like me in this way. I hate tests when I think they are pointless. This is what you'll hear, in school. In our schooling system, we just get trapped in the mindset of thinking, these tests, they're just pointless, right? We hate tests when we think they're pointless. I hate tests when I think they're going to be painful. I don't want a painful test. Okay, I'll just learn it. I learned it. Don't worry about it. I learned it. Just trust me. I learned it. I don't need to be tested, right? I don't want to go through a test if it's going to be painful. And when we think they're a punishment, right? When we think a test is just a punishment, and we all had that teacher in high school, you were pretty sure that the tests were just a punishment. Or when they're a pointless, painful punishment, right? That's when we really hate them, and we've all had those. We're like, this dude is just testing us just to get under our skin. He just doesn't like kids. Why is he even a teacher? This is when we hate tests. But then there's another time that we hate tests. When we think that they're the purpose. When we think the test is the purpose, the test is the end goal. And so I'll explain what I mean in a second. Here's what you got to know. The test is not the purpose. It is the propeller. So I was watching last Monday night. I was with my father-in-law at my house. And I was watching Tom Brady get his little bottom spanked by the Cowboys all night long. And it got down to the fourth quarter, and it's like, there's no chance, right? It ain't happening, dude. It's done. And so I said something. I said to my father-in-law, I was like, man, this is the point. I played football as a kid. I didn't play in high school. And I know that's shocking. It's like, what, you're built for football. How you possibly not? So I said, this is the point where if I played football, I would struggle. How do you get to 2 minutes left in the game? There is no humanly way possible you can win, but you got to keep playing hard. This is where I would struggle. Like, why? And he said, you just got to get something together. You got to finish strong, get something together for the next season. And I thought, that's it. Because there's a next season. And with Tom Brady, it seems like there's always a next season, right? And so there's a next season. And so these tests, sometimes we get locked in thinking the test is the purpose. It's the end game. That's it. It's the whole thing. It's all about the test. It's not about the test. The test is a propeller to the next season. And the way that we test matters for the next season, for what's next, right? It propels us forward. And so how we see that, how we see the test matters. Because if we see the test as pointless, painful, a punishment, or if we see it as the goal and the purpose, we're not going to do well in the test, right? I have students that it really just becomes about getting an A on the test, not learning the information, just passing the test. And they pass the test and they move on and they don't remember anything that they tested on, right? It was just about the test. The test was the purpose. But the test is not the purpose, it's a propeller. And it propels you into the next class, the next job, the next school, the next season of life. And so how you test, how you see that test, it does matter for the next season. So then there's no test like a spiritual test. I heard a few groans because you know, don't you? There's no test like a spiritual test. Maybe you could call it, maybe you don't see it that way. Maybe it's just a real life test where you think things are going pretty good and then you hit a season and you are being tested. Those tests are hard, but how you see them matters. And so here's what I'll tell you. For years now, anytime I baptize somebody, usually it's a teenager, anytime I baptize somebody, I will check in on them 2 weeks later because it never fails that when they get baptized, there comes a test. And you think, it's kind of annoying, right? Like things are getting good. We're growing spiritually. Things are happening. People are coming. Like I'm growing. I'm getting better. I'm reading my Bible. I got baptized. And you think everything's going to be great. And then boom, man, like within the next few weeks, here it comes, a test. And it's amazing. It still amazes me. Because I think, this will be the time that nothing's going on. Every time. Every time I reach out, something has happened. Something's going on. There's some kind of struggle immediately following the baptism. These tests seem to come when things are going good. Spiritual tests seem to come when things are going good. And we have to brace ourselves. In fact, I've been told before, people have told me, if nothing's going wrong, if there's no struggle in your ministry, if no one's pushing up against what you're doing, you might not be doing much. If no one has a problem with what you're doing, you might not be doing much of anything. Because those tests, they show up when things are going good. So I thought it'd be fun for a little, as we kind of segue this into our journey in Matthew, for a little segment I call Bible College Knowledge, okay? You awake enough for a little Bible college knowledge this morning? There's just some little nuggets that, this is just like the deep, heady stuff that we don't really usually spend a lot of time talking about on a Sunday morning, but it's kind of interesting, and I'm not smart enough to know this stuff on my own. It's just Bible college knowledge, right? This is the deeper stuff. So there is a pattern in the Bible that shows exactly what I'm talking about. And I did not know this. Even all the years I was checking in on kids after baptism, I did not know this pattern existed until recently. But there is a pattern that exists in the Bible. That there's chaos, then there's some kind of water, then there's God's Spirit over the water, then there's an expected order, and then there's testing. Okay, so watch this. Creation. There's chaos. Everything was void. Everything was just chaotic. There was no order. And it said that it talks about the waters, and it talks about God's Spirit hovered over the waters. Then God creates, and he lists out, in the Genesis account, it lists out the order. There's an order ending with Adam and Eve, and then there's a test, and they fail. Okay, then you get to the flood. There's chaos, so then there's water, the flood. Then it says God's Spirit or the wind blew over the water. Then there's an expected order, and then Noah's tested, and he fails. Then there's the Red Sea. There's chaos. They're running from Egypt. Then there's water. Then God's Spirit parts the waters. There's an expected order. They're tested. They fail. And over and over and over in the Bible, we see this pattern, which is interesting to me because then it leads me to today's story in Matthew. And we've been talking about Matthew, who is a Jewish man. This is so important to understand that Matthew is a Jewish man writing to a Jewish audience, which means he knew his scriptures really well, and his audience knew their scriptures really well, specifically the Old Testament scriptures. They knew this. And so Matthew is writing the way he's writing for a reason. And I know as 21st century Americans, we just read over these things. We don't pay that much attention, right? We read the surface level, just give me my little devotional thought for the day, and off I go. But there's things happening in the writing that we just miss, that we just don't even see it. And Matthew's doing it for a reason, because his audience would have saw it. So last week, Clint talked about John the Baptist. He's out in the wilderness baptizing, and he baptizes Jesus. And we see the same pattern happen, that the world is in chaos. John's calling for repentance. John's waiting for the Messiah, because the world is in chaos. Jesus shows up. He's baptized. The Spirit descends on him like a dove, it says. So you have the Spirit over the water. Now there's an expected order from Jesus. Now Jesus just showed up, and he has said, I am here to do God's work. He shows that through his baptism. Now there's an expected order. Matthew's audience would have seen the pattern and known what's coming next. There's a testing. Jesus just put it all out on the line, said, I'm the guy, I'm here to do God's work. So there's a test. So sure enough, the next story after Jesus' baptism is Jesus being tested in the wilderness, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's jump into this. I want to say something as we get into this story, because some of you may be a little familiar with this story. Maybe some of you are hearing it for the first time. This is like a tension that you might notice. If you're like me, you might notice this tension, and I need to address it before we jump in. That Jesus is about to be tested in the wilderness, and the way he's going to be tested is he is out there praying and fasting, and he's going to be tempted by the devil. Okay. But then I'm led to this tension of, wait. So now we've got testing, we've got tempting. Are they the same thing? Is God doing both of them? What's going on here? Because it says the Spirit led Jesus to be tested, and he was tempted by the devil. And so then I get, maybe like you do, where I'm like, so God is tempting him. No, the devil's tempting him. Well, but God led him, right? We get in this tension, well, but if God led him, then isn't it kind of the same thing? Now, I'm going to say it's not. It's not the same thing. We get kind of hung up sometimes on thinking like, well, if God allows a bad thing to happen, then basically it's the same thing as God doing the bad thing. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think that that's the case. I do not think that that's the case. That just because God allows it to happen, he allows the test to happen, that he is the one doing whatever the thing is that's happening to us. Because the test, see, we see it that way if we see the test as some kind of punishment, like God's toying with us, or some kind of pointless thing that God's just doing and he's just toying with us, right? But that's not the case. The test matters, and how we see that test matters because it propels us to the future. So here's the thing about someone getting baptized. You have just claimed that you are here to live for Jesus. That this is the way you're going to go. You have just claimed that from now on, you are living for Jesus. you think God might want to test that a little bit? It's kind of like they hired me here to work with junior high and high schoolers. You think they might want to test that a little bit? So I had an interview, right? An interview, that's a test. That's a test where I'm going to not only represent Jesus and work with kids, but I'm going to represent real life church. We might ought to be careful. I know some of you are thinking, I don't know if the screening process here is really all that good, but that's a test that matters, right? And so they had me, I came in, I did the interview, they had me teach in junior and high school, and they sat in and watched me teach in junior and high school, and it was great. I had an actual grindstone leader asleep on the second row. It was awesome. And you know what? I did my own kind of testing in that interview. Because when I went out I was going to find a job, I was like, I got to find the right fit for me too, right? So in my list of strengths, I had this whole list of strengths, long list, lots of strengths. I have lots and lots of strengths. The last one said, attention to detail. And I spelled detail wrong. On purpose. Because and the guy I worked with at the time, he's like, I don't know if you should do that, man. Like, people might not think that's very funny. I was like, then that's exactly the person I don't want to work for. And guess who the only pastor was who even mentioned it? My man, Clint Cook. Does that explain a lot now about the kind of people getting hired here? I don't know. So these tests matter, right? The test matters, but I get it. There's a tension there, and it really, to be honest, it's a whole nother message to start diving into that tension. But here's what James says. James, the brother of Jesus, says, it's not God who tempts you. God tests you, but don't ever say God tempts you. And he goes on to talk about why we're tempted. That it really comes from our own desires within why we're tempted. We're tempted by what our desires are in here. That's what screws us up. It's what you really want inside that makes you tempted. It's not God tempting you, but God tests you. So let's jump into this story. It says, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. Okay, I want to point out another little Bible college knowledge-y thing that we don't pay attention to numbers often, what their significance might be. And I'm not suggesting the number is not accurate, that it wasn't really 40 days, 40 nights, but what I'll tell you is when you see the number 40 show up in the Bible, that is a period of testing. The number 40 is a period of testing. And so you see that in the flood, you see it in the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. You know, the Israelites, they're not just wandering around because they're lost. It's a period of testing. My wife the other day said, she said, you know, you really don't have a great sense of direction. I said, where did that come from? Anyway, so 40 days and 40 nights is a period of testing. I just had to work that in. The whole 40-day thing was just to lead to that joke, to be honest. The tempter came to him and said, if you are the Son of God, then tell these stones to become bread. It's like, come on, man, you're hungry. How many days have you been out here? Just make yourself some bread. That's all you got to do. And Jesus answered, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. He said, if you're the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it's written. Now he's quoting scripture to him. He will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. It's like, come on, man. You know he's going to save you anyway. Jesus answered him, it's also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their splendor. All this I will give you, he said, if you'll bow down and worship me. Jesus said to him, away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. So we end up in this story of Jesus' testing. Now Jesus is being tested, and his testing is these temptations coming his way. And so I want to kind of break down what these temptations at their core, what I kind of see, what I felt like. There's other things written on what some of these were. C.S. Lewis wrote some stuff on what these temptations were at their core. But in my devotional time several months ago, I was reading this, and some things stuck out to me of what I saw going on here that really I think connects to us. And so the enemy wanted to distort where Jesus put his satisfaction. The enemy wanted to distort. And I say distort because Satan is using Scripture to convince Jesus to do these things. But some people suggest that he actually misquotes Scripture to get him to do these things. So he is trying to distort where Jesus puts his satisfaction. Check this out. He's hungry. He says, tell these stones to become bread. Just tell them to become bread. He wants Jesus to change where Jesus puts his satisfaction or his fulfillment, right? His peace, his contentment, his joy. I can relate to a temptation where I'm going to find my contentment and my fulfillment in things other than God and who God says I am. Where there are houses, watching for the right house, right? Got to get the right house. Got to get the right clothes. Well, what are people going to think if I do this? Or maybe this career, or this promotion, or this title, if I make this much money, drive this kind of car. There's all these things that we're so tempted to put our satisfaction in to bring us fulfillment, and they don't bring us fulfillment. They bring us temporary fulfillment and satisfaction. And then it goes away and you need more. It's always you need more, right? There's never enough. You make more money, guess what you need? More money. You eat more food, guess what you're going to do next time? Eat more food, right? You always need more. And so the temptation is to put his satisfaction in something other than God. The enemy wanted to distort where Jesus put his security. Look at this. Just jump off. You know he's going to save you. Just jump off. Put him to the test. He wants to change where he puts security. This connects to the satisfaction thing, right? That it's not always just about finding satisfaction. It's about where we're going to find our security, who we are, and how confident we feel. The problem is that when we put how confident we feel, when we put our security, our sense of security, in things like money, jobs, title, status, whatever, clothes, house, car, whatever it is, when we put our security in that, those things are temporary. When our security is put in what other people think of us, those things change every day. Every day, people's opinions of us change, go up and down all the time. And so our security can't go, but he wants Jesus to change where he puts his security. He wants to test where Jesus is putting his security and tempt him. So I have a friend we were talking a while back, and she said last year was a tough year spiritually because she was on a lot of dating apps. And so she was on a lot of the dating apps, and she was going on a lot of dates. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. So she said that this year she just knows, like, she wants to do it different. She wants a better year spiritually, and so she deleted all her dating apps, got rid of them. She's like, that's what was taking me the wrong. I'm getting rid of it. I want to grow, right? So check it out. We had chaos last year. I don't have a water piece for this. I guess you could have dunked your phone in water. That'd get rid of the dating apps. I don't have a water piece for this. But there was chaos, right? She's trying to do better. She's on the right track. And she's sending me screenshots over the weekend. Every app on her phone that she's using is now giving her dating app ads. She's just flooded now with dating, and she's like, there's that temptation right there in the face, right? She's just scrolling Instagram, dating app ad. Hop on Snapchat, dating app ad. Get on YouTube, dating app ad. And I was like, can I please, I was actually writing this message when she texted me that. I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Right when we are trying to do better, right when things start to get better and they're doing good, here comes a test. You got to put it to the test. And the last one is the enemy wanted to distort where Jesus put his service. Where he put his service. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. He says, all of this I will give to you if you just bow down and worship me, as if it's his to give anyway. As long as Jesus will serve him, then I'll give you all these things. Yeah, you'll have satisfaction, you'll have security, you'll have it all. Just give me your service then. Just give me your service and you can have it all. What gets your time and energy and attention? What is the temptation in your life to devote your priorities to give your money and your time and your energy to? Because we are tempted often to devote our service to the wrong thing. And sometimes it's real subtle, right? Because we still go to church. Well, I'm still going to church. I go to church every week. Well, I read my Bible. Or whatever it is. Like you're going through. But if we really, really look and examine, we are all tempted to devote our service to something else. To devote our security, our satisfaction. I remember when I had left, I'd gotten out of school, I'd kind of done like an interim thing, like a temporary youth pastor thing, and it was time to find, like, it was time for a job, right? I thought I'd get right out of college and get a job, and that would be it, right? That's what all my friends did. And that's not how it went for me. It was like, get out of college, kind of felt called back to Springfield, so did some other things for about a year, waiting around, then ended up in this interim position. So I'm in the interim position, but that's temporary, so then I'm looking for a job. And I just remember after all that, then I'm out, I'm applying, I'm interviewing, it's just nothing's the right fit. And I hit a point where I just was, this was a testing season for me. This was a test because, you go into it going, oh, God's going to provide. Yeah, I trust him. He's going to provide. Yeah, you know what? I'm not even worried about it. He knows the plan and whatever he wants to do. It's in his timing. Yeah, he's going to take care of me. And time goes by. Another interview, not work out. We're going to go a different way. Doesn't work out. I went to an interview. A guy asked me what I thought about speaking in tongues. I said, I think it's a legitimate gift of the Holy Spirit. Not everybody has it, but I believe it's a legitimate gift. He basically called me crazy for thinking that. Called another church and said, hey, where are you guys at? He said, Blake, I'm going to be honest with you. Love you, man. We really love you, but our only hang up is that you don't speak in tongues. I was like, you got to be kidding me. One church, crazy for believing it. Another church, because I don't do it, right? So I got real disheartened. This is a season of testing here. I'm trying to go into ministry, right? Like, this should have worked out a long time ago. God, I'm trying to go into ministry. Like, this should have came easy. I'm trying to be a pastor, for crying out loud. Like, this should have came easy for me. And I really started to lose where I put my security. I started making plans like, I guess I need to talk to my boss and just see how I can make construction a full-time gig for me, because I don't think I'm going to get a job. So I'm going to have to just go into construction, I guess, because it's been like 3 months. Yeah, I know. You guys thought I was talking like a year, didn't you? You see how strong I was. But you go into this season of testing and you're tempted to start changing where you put these things. But the test matters. How you see the test matters. How you make it through the test matters. It doesn't matter just because of the test. It matters because of where you're going next. It mattered for me in that testing season because, dude, you're going into ministry. You're going to lead other people to do this now. You need to learn. This is how any test is this way. It's like, look, we're putting you in this job, or you're going to the next school, or you're going to the next grade, we're going to the next lesson, we're going to the next whatever. You need to know. You got to grow from this. The testing matters. But it's hard because we don't want a painful test. We don't want a punishment. We don't want any of that, right? But it matters because it propels you forward to the next season. And so some of you maybe feel right now like you are in a season of testing. And I don't know what that looks like because it looks different for everybody. But it's on some level, some kind of spiritual testing going on. And it's hard. And we start losing focus. And we go, I don't know if God really cares. Maybe he doesn't, because if he did, I wouldn't be going through this, right? This goes back to that tension that we go, maybe he doesn't care because this is hard. And if God really cared, he wouldn't make me go through anything hard. Because that's what every good parent does, right? Stop their kids from going through anything hard. Stop their kids from any responsibility or any test. No, that's not what they do. But we lose sight of that. And we start buying into lies. And we start being tempted to put our service and our security and our satisfaction in other things. And so I guess it leads us to the question then, so how do you fight the temptation? How do you move through the test? And man, I wish I just had some the point's gonna go on here and you're gonna go, oh, never heard it before, like brand new information that I just discovered this week and no one's ever, but I don't. You know and trust God's words. This is what Jesus did. You read the story. Satan comes with a lie. Satan comes with a temptation. And every single time Jesus responded with God's words. Yeah, but it is written. Yeah, but God said. I wish, I wish I had something really practical. We're going to, this is it, though. You got to know and trust God's words. You got to just read your Bible. You got to be in the discussions with the people, whether it's growth groups or connection point or phone calls with a friend who lives across the country, and you just talk about, you just got to know God's words. You got to know what is really God's words. And stop buying the voices that are not God's words. You got to know it, and you got to trust it. You got to say it. And the thing is, as you all know, especially you who are, as I call, seasoned in life, the more you move through those seasons of testing and you come out on the other side and go, what was I did it again. I was tempted again. When am I going to learn to just trust him? Because when I get out on the other side, I'm going to go, it was all right. Well, guess what? Then another one comes and you do the same thing and you get out and go, oh man, how do I keep falling for this? And I'm hoping that you get to a point where you do that enough times that it gets easier and easier to make it through these seasons of testing without doing that. I don't know. See me in the lobby. Tell me if it gets easier. Don't tell me if it gets harder. You got to know and trust God's words. This was amazing to me. Several years ago, a girl named Lauren Daigle, who I had never heard of, writes a Christian song. In my opinion, a very obvious Christian song. You say I'm enough. When I say that I'm weak, you say that I'm strong. You remember the song? And it's on the top 40 Billboard charts of secular music. It's being played on secular radio constantly. And I was thinking, do people really not know what she's singing about? I really think they didn't know. I think, because you could hear it and maybe think she's singing about a guy, right? There's a guy who's giving her this affirmation. Maybe that's what they thought. I don't know. I was like, how are they missing? This is very obviously about how God sees us, about God's words, about who we are and how he sees us. And I don't know what they thought, but here's what I know for sure. The world is dying for a father to tell them who they really are. For a creator to tell them who they really are. Guys, we are dying for someone to just tell us that we are enough. It matters. And this gets so tough because people who don't have a good relationship with their father, this is hard. It's either hard to hear or it changed your life when you met your heavenly Father. And what your earthly father did or said didn't matter anymore. Because people are just thirsty for it. They just need to know from somebody who they are, that they are enough, that they can make it, that he's got them, that he is with them, that he's not abandoned them and left them. And so that song is on the stinking top 40. So whatever season of testing it is that you're going through, maybe you're about to go through, maybe you just got out of one, you have got to know and trust God's words. And look, we're going to have a baptism today. So whoever it is in the room is getting baptized, sorry. It's coming. But the baptistry is warm. And so anybody else who's ready for that, we're ready. If you're ready for that, we're ready. And we will help you as much as we will help you through whatever comes next. And there will be satisfaction and security that you can find in Jesus that goes beyond all the temporary stuff you've been looking for it in. You've been looking for it, it's temporary. You can find it, and it goes above all that stuff. We're ready if you're ready. But there's going to be testing. And it matters how you see that testing. It matters how you move through that testing. You got to know and trust